In this video we're going to have a sneak preview at the Application Craft Advanced Maps widget. This wraps the Google V3 API and it allows us to first of all render maps in various different ways, but also to encapsulate a number of the most important functions that the API offers. We'll start off just by putting this into preview and seeing a few of the functions in action. So first of all, we can add markers. Let's zoom in a bit so we can see this better. So if I click add markers now, it's very simply added some markers, and as you can see it's got mouse over and mouse click. All this is doable with a single function call, and it doesn't require an in-depth knowledge of the V3 API from Google at all. Let's zoom now right out, and we'll press, we've got this populate widget function, so here you can see how we are able to add a number of different overlays of different types: a circle, rectangle, a polygon, line. Here's a custom image, and that can be added with 2 lines of code. We can also get address details, so we're passing in a coordinate and we get straight back formatted address, and we can also from a coordinate get an address. We can get driving directions, and we've got support for things like current location, that it automatically pops that onto the map. We can clear our overlays with a single call. So let's take a little bit of a look at the way we set that all up. The first thing we'll do is look at properties. So if I select the widget, we can specify API keys. Those would be your own ones. You'd set those up through Google. The default latitude longitude coordinates, which is the center of the map, whether you want a default marker to be shown, the zoom level by default, and then here, this is an interesting one, map controls. There are a number of different map controls that can be incorporated. So here's the map type, that's set to 1, the zoom, the pan, the scale, the little pop-out overview map, and so on. So that can all be set up by default here. All of these things can also be modified through your JavaScript as well. Let's go and see what other things are available. Data binding is interesting. So if you've got data in an application craft query, so that could be application craft collected data or data coming straight out of a database, you can populate then that data directly without code into a map. Obviously that data needs to be in an appropriate format first, but that's a great way of really rapidly binding a database to a map. Then we've got further down the default marker image. If we don't specify it, it gets the default Google one, but you can override that. And you can also override it at the individual level. If you're using code, you can specify individual icons for each marker. The default overlay style properties, so the line for your overlay, the line, color, opacity and width, and then the fill, color and opacity. So if I preview that just to show you what that looks like, and we go, for instance, toggle polygon, that's here the stroke of the line, and then that's the fill details. And again, those can be controlled on an individual basis for each overlay as well if you're using code. We also have AdSense support, so you can put in your publisher ID and optionally your channel number, specify where inside the map the AdSense ads should appear and what type of AdSense display you have. So those are the most important properties. Then we've also got a number of events. So for instance here we're handling what happens if somebody clicks on an overlay. And then finally, and probably most importantly for more advanced users, we have the methods. So we've got a number of methods here just behind these buttons for demonstration purposes. So for instance, when I add those markers, again let's just do it quickly so we remember what it looks like. Click on add markers, zoom out a bit, and there you can see it's popped those markers in. So the code for that, let's go to events. Here you can see we're just hard coding the on mouse over HTML, the on mouse click HTML, and then this single line adds that marker to the map. As you'll see in a minute, you can also add multiple markers in one call. You can also specify here, for instance, we've got optional parameters like the optional icon to use to override the default. You can see here underneath there's a call for clearing the markers. And let's take a look at how we add, for instance, a circle. So adding a circle or any of these, it's exactly the same approach. There you can see we are removing an overlay object if it's already there. If we want to add a circle, that's the code. Very straightforward, and we can add style information optionally to the end of this parameter list too. The most powerful individual function for populating overlays is populate widget. Again, let's just put it into preview to see how that works. Click populate widget, and that's created for me the circle, the line, the polygon, the rectangle, the custom marker. Now let's go and look at the code for that. And here we can see how that's done. So the first thing is we've hard-coded here an overlays array. Typically you would get this data back using something like HTTP request. So you'll be getting your data back, however, in an array. Now the array can be an array of complex objects. You don't have to have a specific object structure. As long as all of the individual elements in the array are the same or use the same keys, then that's fine. The way that we then map that array data into the widget is using a so-called overlays map, or it's just a mapping object. And this takes, for instance here, the overlay ID, which is this one, and it will map the contents of that into the ID field of the map. So for instance with coordinates, it's taking from here coords, that's this one here, and it's mapping it into the coords property of the map. So this mapping also supports very complex nested object structures inside your array. So in most cases you won't have to do any array translation before finally you call populate widget, which populates this map widget with this data using this map. The final things to mention are some of the geocoding functions. For instance, we can get an address. So you pass in a coordinate and you get back an address, or reverse geocoding, you pass in an address and get back coordinates. You can also get driving directions, add to the map my current location, or just get back a coordinate pair of where I currently am using the device sensor. Let's just take a look at one of those, for instance, get address. And here you can see it's pretty simple. So we're calling the object, the widget names object, get address, with these coordinates, and then it calls the callback function, which is here. So that's where you handle the data when it comes back from the lookup. So the general idea is, as you've seen, is to really make the mapping functionality very, very accessible, very easy to use. Advanced users can hack in, so if you want to get to the underlying maps object, you can. So this is will be available in beta form in mid-January 2012, and we'll announce it as soon as it's available.